15
My
minutes.
wife is a stay-at-home mom who homeschools our kids and works part-time with keeping our books.
Yeah.
It is different. Technology is different. Dating apps are different. But all my wife's friends are stay-at-home moms who have side hustles and are amazing moms, teachers, educators.
I just think it's so different. Like I was saying earlier, the social media aspect of things. Like my dad was a pilot. I uncovered their box of like love letters to each other. Like
sweet.
it was just so different then. Like,
but I think it is possible today. I think it's hard. I do think it's hard. I think there's a lot of people that are, because of social media, because of the sexual revolution.
Yeah.
I know we've talked a lot about porn, but I would say because of porn, all
Yeah.
these things, it's a lot harder to have what you're describing, but it is possible.
so you guys give me hope.
But we're not like just lucky. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we were very blessed. I think we were. I think I don't know about your
Yeah.
family background, but I can say like my parents are together. Like that is a privilege I have.
Yeah.
But I will also say like, it is possible for everyone, but we just have to be that change we want to see. We have to choose it. Like if we want to be that with a man who's going to be that provider, that protector, who's going to be a man of honor, then our role would be to be that woman of honor who wants to cherish motherhood, and not prioritize careerism over it, and who's preparing for a life like that. Because it will maximize that opportunity for us.
Go ahead,
I also
Isabella.
would add that, like, even though I'm 23, a lot of my friends are already in their 30s, and the biggest thing that they say is that they feel that, like, at this point in their lives, that feminism really did have a big impact on them. Not in the way that it is now, but more so that women, like, were told, like, you can do whatever you want. You have your whole 20s. You have time to be able to settle down and have a family. And now, like, I have a friend who's 34 who, like, just ended a 2-year relationship, and she's like, I spent my entire 20s thinking that I had time, and now here I am, and I don't have time.
But I also want to like revert back to, because I was seeing comments earlier and like, she has 2 eggs left. Like, don't just assume that.
I mean, the truth is that women are on a biological clock, but genetics and the way that you take care of yourself is really crucial
like
to
they
that.
shouldn't just automatically assume because I'm 35 and I don't have a husband and the white picket fence, like there's nothing wrong with
my
that.
best friend's 34 and she just went to a fertility clinic and she's completely fine. So
my
I
mom
really think that's
had
the way that you take
me
care
when
of
she was
yourself.
40 and they said her ovaries looked like that of a 21-year-old.
No one's saying that you, me, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
34, or actually I'm 35. I turned 35 last month. No one is saying that any of us, because we're older, like we're doomed or anything
I just
like
think
that.
we have this, like, as older women, I don't even want to consider myself that, but like you just have this. And then just seeing the comments, I'm like,
Don't look at the comments.
I know.
I think the key is.
I know.
I think the key is, the point or the key here is, this is a dating podcast. It's like, okay, what's the way to maximize dating towards your goals?
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you in Miami too?
I'm in Nashville.
Nashville. Okay, so you're in a major city.
Yeah.
So just something to consider. We're communicating selection bias on both parts. You're in Miami, you're in Nashville, you guys are in the Hollywood scene. That's very different than the way the rest of the country lives.
Yeah.
Right? So if you come to Vista, California and go to church with me and meet all my friends and my wife's friends, and you meet a dozen stay-at-home moms, right? My world is completely different. Your world is different. Your world is different. And so my advice would be, maybe be open to meeting some different people in different circles as friends, not like to date, but and that'll show you that, like, oh no, there's actually a lot of people that still do hold to those values that you.
I feel like we're only talking about women who want kids. Like, what about the women who don't want kids?
Well, I think we're talking about women who want to be with men that want to be that provider protector, and typically those women are seeking a family and wanting to have kids. And
I think most women want to have kids, most.
Probably like 90%.
85% of women will have kids.
I remember having a conversation with my dad when I was like 18, when I was graduating high school, where I asked him, what did you want to do when you were finishing high school or actually finishing college? And I remember him just telling me, well, I wanted to marry your mom and I wanted to build a family with her. And I remember just being like a young punk ass kid that had all these like dreams of entrepreneurship and creativity and stuff, and just being kind of stumped and just even then thinking like, this is the generation gap, that my parents, to them, to just have a nice American dream life was the goal. And I think that to a lot of like young dudes, especially now, and probably women too, it's like you want to like build something and make something out of yourself before you want to settle down, because you pretty much accurately know that once you become Steve Jobs, that you're going to have, your pick of all the different women out there. And that mentality is, I guess in some ways it makes sense in that, like, if you remain single, maybe you're going to be able to work harder on your hopes and dreams. But I also think that it's kind of a pipe dream. And for the average person, especially given how high the cost of living is, especially in major cities, it's like realistically, probably the best thing that you could do is like fall in love, get into a relationship with a girl, get married, split your expenses, have a family, etc. once you feel comfortable financially. But like, you know, we just live in a society where we're constantly surrounded by people who are putting on examples of doing the other thing, which is basically like mindlessly chasing ass and you know, highs and money or whatever for your whole life. And that is kind of like a weird thing that the manosphere has to sort of reckon with, which is that, you know, I think, you know, somebody like Andrew Tate being like at the forefront of the manosphere now, it's like you can't really necessarily just be pushing an agenda of like, yo, fuck as many girls as possible, because Andrew Tate is out here saying like, no, that is not going to make you happy in the long run. And anyone who's really being honest with you is going to let you know that's not going to make you happy in the long run. To me, it's a nuanced question of like, how long do you need to be single? Like, what is the ideal number of people that you should probably be thinking you might want to have sex with before you get into a long-term relationship?
I would just, that was very profound. And I think what we're saying is, statistically speaking, the majority of men and women will have kids. What is the optimal way to build a family? If we're talking about dating, we're talking about relationships, what's the optimal way to cause the most amount of flourishing to the most amount of people? And what has worked through and through all these civilizations? I think that's the crux of what we're getting on. So what you're saying is totally spot on. And it's not red pill, blue pill to me. There's a lot of goofy things from both sides, a lot of nonsense being pushed. But if we're talking about the optimal flourishing environments, because we're all going to eventually have kids, majority of us anyway, how does that look?
If you're a guy, I mean, I think it's probably, you know, you spend however many years being single and sort of figuring out what you like and what you don't like. And then at some point, once you get into the relationship, you just take it serious. I think once, as a guy in my life, when I decided that I wanted to actually treat a girl good, it wasn't really that hard for me to then end up in a relationship with her, you know, whereas when I was trying to do the thing of like trying to be this playboy or trying to like be getting drunk and fucked up and just kind of treating women like pieces of shit, then that was like, it's very hard for you to land in a relationship when you're not showing the girl respect. But if you, as soon as you flip the switch and start like actually treating her like you give a shit about what happens to her or how you're treating her, usually it's it's not that complicated.
Well, you know, it's like powerful too is we can learn from other people's experiences, because I do think like you sharing your experience, Adam, like other people sharing their experience, like, hey, this is how I lived and it didn't make me happy, and so then I wanted to, you know, get married or whatever it is. I do think that people don't have to sow their wild oats. Like, I think that is a mythology in our culture today of like, oh, when you're young, you're promiscuous and then you settle down. I know so many couples who were young and they were each other's first and they settled down and they have this beautiful life that they built together. Now, that's not everybody's story, obviously, but I think that we need to kind of make that normal again. Because right now, if you're a virgin and, you know, you get married, you know, I got married at 30 and I was a virgin, and people were like, no one was like, oh, you're so crazy, you're so weird. Like, how could that be? And it's like, why don't we normalize that instead of saying it's weird? I mean, literally people get made fun of for being virgins, especially men, actually, which is so sad.
It's true.
And it should be the opposite. It should be like, no, let's celebrate that, not to shame people who aren't, but let's celebrate living that. People say it's traditional, but living that way, because it leads to and has led to so many beautiful marriages, like your parents and, you know, my parents and other people who have those role models.
So really quick on chivalry. So do you think chivalry is dead?
Yeah, but maybe I just haven't been around the right guys.
Yeah. Well, to quote the great Dave Chappelle, he says, chivalry is dead and women killed it.
Oh.
Harsh.
In what way?
Some way.
Well,
yeah, I don't know if I...
Well, I think, like, okay, when it comes to, like, this
I
expectation
think
that...
dating apps killed it more than a certain gender.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of factors. There's... They're just... What's going on with you?
I'm just telling you how I feel.
I know, but like, can you not interrupt, please? Okay. Certainly, I think social media, dating apps have played a big factor. But I think that when it comes to like who should pay on the first date, guys doing these sort of traditional things, like a lot of women seem to just blithely assume that traditional gender roles assigned to men are something that they are entitled to the benefits of by magical default, instead of it being something that ought to, that women have to help culture and nurture for it to be there for men. And so I think like in order for you to like, you should be the type of woman that's deserving of the traditional, if you want traditional treatment, you ought to be a traditional woman. And that just comes back to our point, our argument that we were having earlier is if you're not a traditional woman, if you're not a traditional woman, you cannot expect traditional treatment from men.
I have to argue with that. Like, I think I'm a traditional woman. Like,
Are you? I
I
mean, you
think
said
I
you've had like
am.
what, 30 plus previous sexual partners?
I don't think that has anything.
You say you're what, like 33 or something?
34?
I ain't none. Don't listen to them.
Yeah.
You're doing great, girl.
I mean,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I go to church every weekend. I'm like very spiritual. I know what I want. Like, sometimes you haven't met the right person yet, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just
yeah, there's men out there that don't
True.
really care about body count, but there's a lot of men out there that do.
yeah.
If I was your boyfriend, I would let you slide.
Thanks.
All right, well there you have
There
it.
we go.
If Adam 22 was your boyfriend, you'd let it slide.
There we go.
I'll let you fuck some other guys too.
Whoa.
You know?
I wouldn't do that, but
He's not chivalrous. You don't want to.
Oh.
I'm plenty chill.
I pay for half of everything.
Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you're rich.
I don't feel like all men want the traditional gender roles. I feel like if
Yeah.
I stopped paying for half of everything, Adam would not be happy.
Who paid for the
no.
first? Like, was their first date?
Oh, I paid
did you
for
guys,
that,
did
yeah.
you guys do dinner for the first date? What did
We
you guys
went to a diner and then we went and got 7-Eleven cheap wine.
do? Did y'all split the bill or?
No, I
I think he paid
Oh,
for
okay,
it.
all right. He's a gentleman.
It was a diner.
Adam 22 is a gentleman. See, I wouldn't pay for the first date.
really.
Yeah, I don't pay for the first date.
wow.
gangster as
You
fuck.
expect the women to
No, I don't expect her to pay for me, but I think we should split the bill.
split? Wow.
That's right.
So you want a traditional woman, but then you want to do some things untraditional when it's in
Yeah.
your favor.
Well,
Yeah.
see, here's the thing, right? About
I'm saying
that.
not all men want like the traditional thing.
Right.
I don't
Well,
think
I
we
think
ever
we
said all
have to
men.
we have
We
to
said all
give what
men.
we want to get.
Right.
I mean, what it comes down to, with both
right.
men and women. It's the
So will
only
you
way, guys.
Let her
It's
have
the
some
only
bodies
way.
if she splits the bill with you.
If you
No,
want,
still no bodies. They can't be bodies, but
I
Needs
feel
to
like
be a virgin who splits the bill.
in my life when I've been on a first date and I pay, which is like really any like if I just start talking to a girl in a bar, I'm gonna start paying for her drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a way of saying like, look, I am financially stable. I'm not scared to spend $7 on buying you a drink or $20 on a cheeseburger or whatever it is. It's like I feel like I understand there's like a value to the peacocking that you're doing by paying. It's just like sort of demonstrating that you're not broke. But I do like in terms of the principle, I like where he's going with it. And it's kind of like a nice test to find out how much the woman is just there for free TGI Fridays,
yeah. I mean, it's
No one is there for free teacher.
Well, you've never been on a date with Brian.
well, there definitely are women who partake in foodie calls.
Yes.
Where they're
I've never heard this before in my life.
wait, you've never heard that
Foodie
term,
calls?
Adam?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a foodie call.
Wow.
This is a
Free
thing.
meals.
Where
Foodie call.
where
Wow.
and maybe it's not a dinner, maybe it's an experience. The guy's going to take her to a concert or take her on some experience or
Right.
fly her out, take her on a vacation, take her shopping on the first date, which is that to me is way too much. But
Yeah.
But as a guy, you do kind of have to be cautious of that. And look, I do think if you don't pay for the first date as a guy, you are going to lose some girls. Like some girls are going to have an issue with it. I do think it's a good screening mechanism to find women who are that have high interest. They're so interested in you that perhaps even if they would prefer a guy to pay for the date, but they're still going to pursue it with you.
I think women pay their dues in other ways, though. Like they're getting
How?
dressed, they're doing their makeup, they're doing their
Guys do
hair.
that.
Okay,
Well, not
but
the
you're not
makeup,
spending.
but
You
You're not,
guys take like 10
you're not
minutes to get
spending
ready.
an
I got a haircut,
hour
go
doing
away.
And all the
your
money the
hair.
girl's putting into all of those things that she had to get.
Oh.
Do you know how expensive
Oh,
makeup
but
is?
hold on. I thought women wear makeup for themselves and not for men.
No, I mean I wear makeup for men.
For men?
Yeah.
Oh, the
I think
patriarchy wins
paying-
again.
So the paying for the first date is a sign of chivalry because it signals the dynamic, which is that I, as a man,
We'll pick-
ultimately want to
oh,
be a
actually,
provider,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And like I'm telling you, I'm signaling to you as a woman that if this continues, we fall in love, we choose to marry each other, we get married, whatever, that I want to try to provide so that you're able to have babies. I mean, that is a very like fundamental natural principle that I think is beautiful.
Yeah, and I think if we were more like in an old order sort of way when it comes to dating, like being more traditional, I think in the past, maybe you'd date like 1 or 2 people, and then the first, second, or third person that you ever pursued romantically ended up being your husband or wife. Now in today's day and age, people are going on dozens of dates, hundreds of dates,
and it's
before
easy
finding.
to do so. You know, like you
Yeah.
can easily go on a couple dozen dates over the course of a year, and like
Yeah.
whereas my parents growing up, I mean, it would have been pretty tough to even meet that many people.
Yeah.
You know.
Let me just read this one.